Hi guys, it's David James from Business Growth Digital Marketing, and today I have a very special guest all the way from New York. Yes, New York City in the US of A. He is the founder and blogger of Criminally Prolific, the brilliant mind behind the SaaS company Just Reach Out, and the creator of the PR course PR That Works. Dmitry is a man who knows how to create bridges between gaps using PR. What was once a service exclusively for businesses with large budgets is now affordable and doable due to what he teaches and the courses and tools that he provides. In business, and especially in SEO, digital PR has increased in importance and influence. Building relationships is key, and you only get one shot to make a good first impression. So we'll be discussing that and more throughout our interview today. So welcome aboard, Dmitry.
Hey, thanks. Good to be here. What an introduction. Wild.
That's how we do
One,
it.
one of the best, Usually it's like, hey, it's Dmitry from Just Reach Out or Current Prolific. This is
Yeah,
good. This is
yeah,
good.
yeah, you are the man, Dimitri. And I've been saying it for a while. You are the man. Yeah, so I've given a brief introduction about you, and there's so much more under the surface. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your business, and what you've been doing, and just all the incredible things that you've been doing in the industry?
Yeah, I guess, my focus is to help people rank higher and be seen and get exposure and publicity through content, whether it's video, just like we're recording now, or it's, content you write for an article, or maybe it's a podcast. These days, podcasts are pretty, popular these days. A lot of people putting up podcasts out there. So my goal in life is just any entrepreneur out there, any author, any musician, any blogger, any company, any brand, anybody out there who is doing something amazing and deserves the exposure and publicity, to help them learn how to do it on their own and not help them teach, no, basically help them hire anybody else. So I want them to learn what they do and learn the craft of PR and SEO and not have to hire PR firms, hire consultants or other folks who will sort of try and pitch and get you in Forbes and Fast Company and Inc. magazine. I don't want people to do that. I want people to just do it all on their own. And I think it's possible. And so my courses, my coaching, my software company, all is designed to help people be seen by their customers, acquire customers through exposure, and not have to hire PR firms and big agencies. That's the goal.
Yeah, well, look, that's a fantastic goal. And I think just from my experience with working with different clients, they always feel like if you need to do PR, you need to have a big budget. You need to hire an agency or someone who's a dedicated expert. And they don't really realize how much opportunity they have to do it themselves, even with just some of the story angles that they have, or just being able to reach out to local publications. It's like what you said, people try to go into Forbes or go into Inc., go into Times, and it's so much more than that. Now, I'm actually a student of PR That Works, and as an SEO specialist, one of the biggest challenges I've had, it's actually outreach and developing relationships and crafting successful pitches when it comes to doing online PR and digital PR. I've been in the SEO industry for over 10 years, and it wasn't until I did your course where I really started to gain more of the benefits with connecting, developing relationships, and allowing that to grow into either link building opportunities or outreach or PR opportunities, and just genuine opportunities that align with the business goals. Like before that, it was just people in SEO, they tend to have an approach that doesn't really convert the best. So with learning the skills through PR, we've been able to improve that. And I know personally that I've improved my success after doing your course. So, like the first question I want to ask you is, like, how important do you think it is for people to actually have some form of PR skills, with their business goals or whether they're in SEO?
Um, I guess it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. And I like to always tell people have a goal in mind. So when you're doing any kind of, when you're thinking about exposure, you're trying to figure out how am I going to acquire customers or get seen or, get my thing that I'm working on in front of people who might buy it or might even give me feedback at this point. If you don't have a pricing or you're not selling anything, or heck, maybe you don't even have anything yet. You just want to get an email list going or a popular blog going or a community. A lot of people that use our software, we have over 4,712 customers who use Just Reach Out to do PR. And I'd say, close to half of them, they don't have a real product that they want to sell. They're actually working on, like, basically building a community of people who might buy something they build later on and sell later on. And so I always tell people the first thing in mind is like, what is your goal? And that goal is one number usually. Do you want to get to, let's see, I want 5 people to check out my new blog or something like that and give me feedback. Or I want 10 people to be on my newsletter or something like that where like, all right, this week I want this many people or this month or this year. And so like we have a goal, like I have a goal of like having, 4,500 customers by the end of the year. And so I know that I'm trying to get there. And so once you have that goal in mind, then your tactic would change. And so I don't think that anybody needs to have a PR background or expertise or skill set to do it. I certainly did not. I started out as an engineer. I have a computer science degree. I worked as a software engineer, and I had moved to California and Silicon Valley, really figure out how to do business and how to build companies. I didn't have any experience in PR, business, or anything close to it. And I learned on my own and it was actually hard because I was more of an introvert. Now I'm more of an extrovert now. But it was really hard to talk to people for me because I was an engineer. So starting up conversations was really tough. But what I found is that delivering value up front and having a personalized approach when you're reaching out to people is really, that lesson really, really went far for me and has stuck with me through my entire career after that move to California and after I started working on marketing skill set for myself. And so at the point when I knew nothing, all I did is I just said, all right, well, this is a person. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hyper-personalize it to them, and then I'm going to send out a note and deliver value up front somehow. And I always like the example Dan Martell gives. I just interviewed Dan Martell from Clarity, and he's kind of a bit well-known investor, angel investor. He founded Clarity FM and was acquired. He's founder of multiple companies that were acquired. But he always says when he was 18, he actually sent out 20 emails to CEOs, like of the billionaires, basically. And in those emails, he said something like, basically, there are 3 successes to a business, and it was pretty interesting. So like he talked about different ways for people to succeed at running start businesses, and he personalized those emails, right? So he basically said everyone argues that it's who you know, network, what you know, education, and perseverance, not giving up, that are required to be successful. And then he says, if you had to pick one, just one out of these 3, which one would it be? And that was the very little context, right? He's emailing, like Mark Cuban was one of the people he emailed who responded to it. And Mark Cuban responded, this was 15 years ago before he even invested in Dan Martell's company. But he responds with like choosing all 3 when everyone else is picking one. That was like a classic Mark Cuban reply, right, to that question. But that question is a great way to think about striking up a conversation with a billionaire CEO of a public company. Because that's what Dan Martell was doing. He was 18 years old. All he knew is that if this guy is a billionaire and he's running a public company, he probably has some advice to share, and he might be connected to people who would help me run my business that I don't know anything about, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Plus,
Exactly.
his upbringing was insane. Like, he was a drug addict, he was in jail, he
Mm-hmm.
got out of that, and he got into like coding,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't know anything about running a business. It's not like he was brought up in some kind of environment where he had any background that didn't know
Yep.
anything about it. And so striking up conversations like that was very much how I started working on building relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what I was building relationships for at the time. I moved to Silicon Valley, and I just knew that I needed to know people in order to learn from them on how to do marketing, SEO,
Yep.
PR, all that stuff. And so I always tell people, bring value to the table, and it doesn't matter if you don't have any background. There's no special, way to kind of build relationships or do PR and SEO.
Mm-hmm.
Always open with a personalized sentence. That's
Mm-hmm.
one thing. You got to personalize it. Show that you've done the research and show that you've done work, and
Yep.
you're not just spamming tons of people, right? That's the first thing that you do. And then
Mm-hmm.
the next thing I always say is, you have to provide value. You have to
Yep.
give to get. And that's like, you got to do something up front to do that, and always have a quick ask, like a very concrete ask. Keep it very short.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's essentially how PR began for me, and I just kept practicing that. Like, what does that mean, a personalized sentence? What does it mean to provide value?
Yep.
How do I provide value to somebody I don't know? And
Mm-hmm.
so I just kept like figuring out like what's the ask, what's the quick ask, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Look, man, that's you're dropping gold nuggets today. Wow, it's incredible. Yeah. So it's interesting because my next question was actually going to be like, why should businesses work towards connecting with influencers? But you've pretty much answered that one there. And my other question, it was actually going to be, how important is it to craft a perfect email pitch rather than whipping one up off the cuff? So you've kind of answered that already, but I think it would be good to just go into a bit more detail as to, like, not just spending 30 seconds and then writing something completely random and hoping that you'll get a response, rather than actually thinking about it from a strategic point of view and then trying to get a positive response back to open up that dialogue.
yeah, I think one of the first things I would say is don't sell, but serve. And
Yep.
so, one of the biggest reasons I think cold emails fail
Mm.
most of the time is that within like 2 seconds of looking at it, you can see that they're selling you something. It's like a
Mm.
sales thing or something. They're like, yeah, they're trying to get you to do stuff.
Yep.
And so the easiest way to fix that is like reframe it. Reframe the whole email in a way that I want to serve this person.
Yep.
And that's what you want to do. You want to serve them,
Hmm.
and figure out how you're going to serve them.
Yep.
But first, you got to like figure out like if you're a fit with them, right? Are
Yep.
you a good fit? And so I think that's, like digging deeper into that, that's probably the best way to think about it. And so you might provide value up front by correcting their spelling mistakes on their articles, or maybe
Yep.
you can go and look at their blog or their website. This is a great one that I love to use all the time, is I run it through Google Page Insights. And
Hmm.
Google Page Insights is a tool that a lot of people, if you are listening to this, you haven't heard about it. It's a tool that Google has. It's a free tool, and all it does is just evaluates websites' performance.
Hmm.
And it's a great one because a lot of times your website is not ranking, and you're like, what's going on? Like, I have pretty good content. And a lot of times it's the technological issues behind your site. It's, a lot not loading fast.
Hmm.
There's image compression. There's lots of different issues technologically with it. And so this tool tells you what they are, and it also gives you a grade. And
Hmm.
since it's a grade from Google, it's a pretty good one to use towards like figuring out what to fix, what to tell our developers to focus on.
Hmm.
And so what I like to do is I pop a site into that tool, and I get the report, and the report actually gives you the grade, the things that are wrong, and also the optimized assets of what you can improve. So like it'll actually compile an optimized version of what you have on your site and just say, all right, use this on your site instead of what you have,
Yep.
which is great. And so what I usually do is I'm like, hey, I was checking out your site. I saw you had some issues. Right now, a big thing is mobile. So we're expecting in 2008, Google will be focusing much more on mobile, or 2018 will be focusing much more on mobile, mobile first index.
Yep.
And so because of that, mobile friendliness of your websites, and specifically the grades that you get on Google Page Insights for mobile scores, is really important for people. And a lot of people just haven't been, like nobody actually goes to it and tests their site all the time,
Yep.
And it changes, like that your grade does change from time to time. So it's important to go there and just check out and see what it is that that site is bringing up in terms of issues and problems technologically,
Yep.
and fix those things, because that has a big impact on how you rank. And
Yep.
so what I like to do is I pop that site in, I get that report, and I send it over, and I'm like, hey, just checking out your site, I see that you have some issues, here you go, like these are the things to fix.
Yep.
And that's a great way to start a conversation, because now they're excited, they're like, I'm serving them, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm not selling something to them. And so now I want them to be most like indebted to me to come back with something else. But,
Yeah,
so yeah.
and that's excellent. So like this is a prime example of what I wanted to get across to my audience, where you serve and not just try to sell them something, because people are getting pitched, like I'd say at least 100 times a day, like from all sorts of things. So,
Yeah.
and how do you break through that noise? And that's exactly what you just shared. So thank you for that. Now, my next question is, what's your thoughts about reaching out via other channels? Because nowadays everyone's pretty much trying to do things on email, but email isn't the only communication channel. You can pick up the phone and call, you can send a letter, you can go to networking events, like whatever it might be. But sometimes I feel like people are just a little bit pigeonholed when it comes to reaching out to people just with email. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. It's email is getting kind of more mainstream these days with cold email.
Yeah,
My blog, I rank for 6,000 different keywords now, and most of them have to do with cold email. So
yeah,
cold email sign-offs, cold email subject lines, cold
yeah.
email signatures, cold email itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people come to my blog and read my articles, and they're writing these cold emails.
Yeah,
And I'm always trying to find, like, if everybody's in this one boat, I'm
yeah.
always trying to be on this other boat. Like, and once people start congregating on this one ship, I'm like, oh, I got to like jump ship, go do something else, because
Yeah,
the competition is just going to be crazy. Like
yeah,
when
exactly.
Google AdWords was like kind of sort of coming over, like people were starting to use it more and more. I was like still experimenting. Even these days you can, but I was far off. I like jumped off that boat a long time ago once the enterprise companies started coming in and just exploiting all the words out there that I can use. There's still a decent amount of words that I can use for AdWords, but
Yeah,
so yeah, so I'd say I'm a lot of times what I'm using now is Quora, and Quora
yeah,
has been a great way to reach out to people, start relationships with them, and build PR and exposure, doing PR outreach and exposure. Because Quora is just a great way right now to use that. There's multiple ways to use Quora to get exposure and publicity, but
yeah,
I think it's a very underutilized way to actually get exposure. I think
yeah,
because a lot of times what you can see is if you do proper research, what you can find is actual Quora threads ranking for keywords
yeah,
very high. Page one, result number two, result number one, result number three for a keyword that has a lot of volume. So if you just filter on whatever tool you like to use, SEMrush or whatnot. If you go on Quora.com, you just type that Quora.com in there, it'll tell you kind of all the pages it's ranking for, and it's like millions of them. But then within there, you can search, and you can search your keyword and say it's toasters or I don't know, like cooking appliances. it will kind of filter all those pages that Google is ranking Quora for just by that search string. And so from that search string, you can like nail down which ones are ranking high for specific keywords related to that search string,
Yeah.
and essentially go and answer them and be the best answer, and get your friends to upload it a little bit. And now your number one answer for a thread that's getting traffic. It's like free traffic almost, right? And so that is probably one of the most underutilized ways of like just doing some PR. But then the other thing is most people don't know about is that most major publications out there, Newsweek, Forbes, Mashable, Huffington Post, Fortune magazine, all of them, Time magazine, they handpick answers from Quora and publish them as articles from that person who answers the question. And I happen to work with somebody who arranges all that and gets that done as a service. But you know, there's countless ways to get that done. And so you can actually be publishing articles on Time Magazine, Fortune, and so forth just by answering questions on Quora and, you know, gaining more exposure. And finally, all the other people who are coming in and answering that question, some of these questions have 20, 30 answers or 100 answers. You can actually start relationships with them. You can reach out to them and say, hey, you've answered this question, I've answered this question, and start networking. They might become your customers. And then, like, as a bonus one, what I like to use is Quora for is I would go and answer a question and reference a journalist's article in my answer. And then I would reach out to the journalist and say, hey, I answered this question. It's on the topic of your article, but I don't think I did it justice. And so what I like to do is start a conversation, and then you're like, oh, thank you for referencing me. Thank you for promoting me. You know, I'd be happy to answer that question. And it's a genuine way to start a conversation. And so, yeah, Quora has been really good in terms of just publicity and exposure, kind of lower hanging fruit type of thing. The other thing that I've been experimenting with in terms of PR, or mainly SEO, is content licensing. So this idea that any given keyword has blogs that rank for it. And the idea is you find a blog that's ranking for it, that's a personal blog, or a person that is not monetizing that traffic daily. And you can monetize that traffic, and that person cannot monetize that traffic. And so you strike a deal, and you say, hey, I'll pay you $200 a month, $100 a month for you to redirect that blog post to my site. And so what that person does, and they put a 301 redirect on that blog post, and that blog post goes directly to my site. We move the content to my site, and it lives on my site with a canonical tag, meaning, hey, this is a duplicate content of the original content on the other site. But immediately within, you know, like that, once that redirect is live, I start getting traffic from that post. I don't have to do much. I don't have to reach out to journalists, publicists. I don't have to do anything really. It's just I strike that one deal with that one person who already has the spot, is ranking very high for that keyword, and I'm getting traffic. And so now there's you know, brokers out there, right? So there's written.com, which they do all the brokerage. So they'll guarantee you the number of visits, and they'll go out and they'll find all these blogs because it's labor intensive. But you know, 3-4 years ago when I started doing this kind of stuff, there was nobody out there who's doing any kind of brokerage, or there was no brokers for that kind of stuff. And I would just get these great deals very cheap, where people would be like, sure, I'll pay, you know, like pay me $30 a month, $20 a month. And I would get these crazy amounts of traffic very cheap. Nowadays it's a little more expensive, but still very not utilized these days, I'd say. And I would say do it yourself. Practice it, see if you can get people, you know, on board, so some kind of like deal, because it's really, you know, could be really, really good way to get exposure going. So yeah, Quora, content licensing, I'd say like Facebook, Facebook groups. I've been using Facebook groups a lot more. But yeah.
Yeah, oh, look, really, really out of the box ideas, and it almost sounds like you're disrupting the traditional model of PR and outreach. No, but it's all for the better, So it's just wow. Yeah, that's what I can
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, I try and like find something that not a lot of people are doing and try and experiment with it. Just
Hmm.
because your traditional ways of acquiring customers is just, yeah, it's being crowded, it's
Yep.
being commoditized, and I think there's a lot of people. Once a lot of people come onto something, it
Yep.
usually you can go and experiment with other things that are much lower hanging fruit and
Yeah.
easier to
Yeah.
work with.
Look, I agree. So I've got two more questions. So, like, how important is it for people to be patient when doing PR campaigns?
Oh yeah, so I mean, like it's really important. I mean, the patience is king usually with
Yeah.
these things. It's, I mean, the definition of PR. When people are thinking PR, they're thinking like, I'm gonna get in the news, right? I have some news to deliver, and this news is gonna be stale and old soon, so I need it published now.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of work is usually good to kind of think about, yeah, we can like, we're running a Kickstarter or crowdfunding campaign, or we have a merger or acquisition or whatever. It's not the type of PR that I love doing, and it's something that I can kind of maybe outsource to somebody else who can just kind of mail merge some
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and send out. What I'm trying to do is figure out how can you strategically get rankings high by doing a lot of guest articles.
Yep.
And so a lot of the work that I do is it's whether it's video, whether it's audio, or whether it's actual articles,
Mm-hmm.
is the very definition of it. It's like 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. It's
Yep.
not a week and I get a mention in Forbes, because that mention in Forbes, it's not going to move the needle much long term for
Yep.
you. But if you're ranking number one for the word sales management,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to move the needle for you. Like you're going to stay there. You're going to get like 10,000 every month new visitors
Yep.
to that blog post. Like that's a significant change. But it takes a while to get there. Like Google doesn't, like it's not going to find one piece of article and just like push it all the way to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times patience, like you just have to have patience for something to work, and just keep improving whatever you're working on.
Yep.
And the way I look at it is like you just need to keep proving yourself to Google that you're better than everybody else on there. So
Yep.
for that keyword, so that competitors that are ranking out higher than you
Mm-hmm.
for some keywords, your piece of content has to be better, better, and better. And so when I think of PR, I don't think of, hey, I got to mention in Fast Company and Forbes and wherever, right? TechCrunch. That's very shallow. Like, I'm an intern and I want to do a bunch of mail merge type of activity.
Yep.
If you're a company that's serious about using PR to move the needle, you're trying to say, all right, I want to rank for the word cold email and I want to be number one. What do I need to do to get there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got to first create the best, most comprehensive piece of content on the word cold email.
Yep.
And then I need to guest write a lot about it. So I
Mm-hmm.
need to figure out where I'm going to guest write about it. And then I need to create videos about it and audio about it and really attack this term. Like basically look at what my inventory of that term is on my site,
Mm-hmm.
compare that inventory with my competitors who are outranking me right now,
Mm-hmm.
and see, why would I rank better than them? How do we compare?
Yep.
And this is where picking the right word takes a long time. And so, outside of running Just Reach Out and outside of PR that converts, my coaching program, I still consult. And so when I consult, I'll spend an entire month or exercise of just picking the right keyword that
Yep.
you can rank for. So yeah, patience is really important because what you're doing is very long-term type of thing. You're going to spend, let's say, 3 months, maybe 4 months, and you're going to rank for this one keyword, and you're going to bring in a lot of traffic. And in the meantime, you're going to get some publicity as well. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
answer a query thread that's going to get you to the top of some thread and get you some people in the door. You might be trending on Reddit. You
Yeah.
might do some other campaigns to get you some exposure. But the ultimate goal is to have that one piece of content ranking high. And the only way you're going to do that is to make sure that you have the right backlinks to it, that this article looks genuine, that you have genuine traffic coming from organic versus paid to it. It just looks like a regular article that's being like really well written and is being shared a lot. And so don't like write an article and just say, all right, I'm going to backlink it and I'm just going to wait for it to rank, because that's not how a regular piece of content behaves.
Yeah.
A regular piece of content gets shares on social, and it's probably significant shares, and then it might like get shared on Reddit all of a sudden, and then there's some people there that love it, and then it might get some backlinks, right? And then it might get like another tweet here and there. So you want it to behave like a normal piece of content.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, patience would be really, like important to just to set expectations. I think that's really important. It's really to think about it. Like yesterday, a client emailed me, and they're one of the customers who just reached out, and they're like, "Hey, I run a bicycle company on Amazon, and when can I be ranking? If I want to start your plan, $497, where we do the PR outreach for you." Yeah. And they're saying, when can I start ranking for my keywords?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, like, what are your keywords? And first of all, like, and then he said 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And I'm like, that's so arbitrary, like you can't, you got to look at it as pick a keyword and figure out what's your competition and see how much time you can dedicate to it to really like outrank your competition.
Yeah.
And so it might take up to 4 months, maybe 6 months or so. So patience is really important.
Yes, I completely agree. Patience and managing expectations. And my last question, like you've already given so many tips, so much insight, but are there any final tips that you'd like to share for successfully executing PR campaigns at scale, for hacking growth and improving online visibility, like even like the be everywhere effect? Like any thoughts?
Well, I would say one thing I want everybody to remember, and this is going to be really important to it goes back to that serve and not sell. It's if you're sending that email out, read it out loud, and the question is, would you say it out loud, to that person? And if the question is yes, you would actually come up to them and live at a conference say what you're about to email them, then sure, go ahead and email that. But if you're not, like, feel awkward saying whatever you've written to them, rewrite that email, because chances are you're selling too much, you're asking for too much, or it's just odd or awkward for you to say that out loud. It's probably not worth sending it to that person. So that's really important to just remember. I want people to remember that. Serve, not sell, and remember that part of like reading it out loud. But in terms of like being everywhere or trying to get publicity up, I'd always go back to your goal. So I always come back to your goal, like what it is that you want publicity for and why. Like what's the actual result there? Because a lot of times people just want more in up here, but like the conversion part really suffers. And that's really a big problem with a lot of my clients that come in. They're like, Dmitry, we'll pay you, like X amount of dollars a month to help us rank for whatever. And I'm like, all right, that's great. Why do we want to rank them? Well, because we want to convert more customers. I'm like, okay, so how many customers are we converting now? And we look at it like, less than 1% converts. I'm like, well, maybe like the problem is like, I'll certainly work on this. This is a long-term game here, like long-term project. I'm going to work on it 6 months. I'll convert, like I'll get you to rank higher and you're going to get more traffic in, but we got to do something about your conversion rate while we're working on this SEO stuff, because it's not going to move the needle at all if people are not converting. So I would like really question the goals there. Like, okay, you want more customers, great. Like, if we get 10,000 more people coming to your site, how many more would convert over to an actual customer, and what's the
Yeah.
lifetime value of the customer? Because
Mm-hmm.
I want this project to, like actually return money back to them. And
Yeah, yeah,
so I'm investing in it holistically. So like I'm looking from a holistic standpoint, like, all right, this is what it's going to cost, and this is how much money you get out of it. And so I always tell people, like, what's the goal there? Like, why do you want to be everywhere? Why do you want to be in Forbes and Fast Company and so
Mm-hmm.
forth? Is it just for the sake of fame? Like, you just love, like, you want your stuff to be everywhere so that people kind of say, oh, you're great?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you have a business objective? Like, do you want to get to this number of customers? And if you do, there's different ways to get there. You just kind of make sure that you have a crystal plan there of like, all right, well, we're going to do this
Yeah.
little exercise, and then we're going to get to this number of visitors, and then we're going to convert them over, and we're going to get this many customers, and that's what we want. And so I would say have that plan in action before you do any kind of like marketing campaigns, influencer campaigns, and whatnot, because a lot of it could be just like not worth your money and time and efforts
Mm-hmm.
to engage in, because it costs a lot of money sometimes to do these things, to get
Yeah.
an influencer to mention you, to get somebody else to do something for you. And it could be achieved, much on a much cheaper scale. So I'd always like caution people. I always get weary when I'm like, oh, like I'm talking to somebody and they're like, well, we just kind of want to be in most publications out there. We want mentions in Fast Company, TechCrunch, and Forbes, and Entrepreneur. We just want to be everywhere. We also want to talk to most influencers sharing us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we just want visibility, want like brand equity, like we want people to know what our brand stands for, all that stuff. And I'm like, all right, like brand recognition, there's something to be said for it. But I'm much more of a numbers kind of marketer where I'm like
Yeah.
coming back like, yeah, it's very hard for me to put a number on brand recognition.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me to put a number of like traffic in, conversions, money. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where like my wheelhouse usually is. And like if you want brand marketing or brand perception, like I usually would send them to somebody else who's on my email list, who's
Yeah.
like some brand expert, and they can kind of talk to them about brand recognition and branding perspective and stuff. But I'm much more of like a numbers person. So anybody I talk to is always like, all right, like what's your number game? Like how many people come in? How many transfer to like paying customers? How
Mm-hmm.
can we like improve that funnel?
Yeah.
That's always like my advice to anybody kind of thinking about it.
Look,
And I'm happy to like give, more feedback to people. Feel free to send me stuff and I can look at it and say, all right, well, this is a good deal. Like we can get just estimates really. You can go Google AdWords even. You don't need to have a fancy SEM Rush or Ahrefs. You just go Google AdWords keyword tool, look
mm-hmm.
up how many searches it gets, estimate how much traffic you might get if you're on page 1, page 2, and then just see from that, how much can you convert.
Yeah.
Put some estimates together and figure out whether it's worth going after it or not.
Look, I completely agree on the whole conversion aspect, and it's something that I really push for at the start of any campaign before anything else gets done. So, like, it's good to see that both of us think alike, but I also think that like a lot of really strong marketers really think in terms of numbers and want to get the conversions working right before sending traffic that doesn't convert. Uh, like I said to you before, Dmitry, that you were just like not just dropping gold nuggets, but making it rain gold nuggets. So I want to thank you so much for your time today. You've been incredibly insightful and generous with your knowledge and expertise. Just before we go, how can people find you?
Yeah, they can just come over to criminallyprolific.com. Criminallyprolific.com is my site, and then from there you will see all the other projects I'm working on. Just reach out software or the PR that converts. You'll see links to it all. So Criminally Prolific is my blog and site. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you for being on the show, Dmitry. To all the people in the
Cool.
audience, follow Dmitry. Learn more about PR to improve your outreach, business visibility, and influence to scale and hack growth, as well as scale the success of your SEO and marketing activities. Thank you again, Dmitry.
Cool. Good to be here. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.